Hi, I'm Heather, and today at Spirit's Freedom Farm we are going to make homemade cream of tomato soup. Okay, we are going to make cream of tomato soup today. It is getting to be fall and chilly, and soup is wonderful. We love a variety of soups at our house. This is one that you can buy tomato soup in a can, and it tastes nothing like homemade. This is so much better, and it really doesn't take that many ingredients. So we have some homemade tomato sauce. I made this sauce from tomatoes from our garden. We have some chicken bone broth. You could use vegetable broth if you prefer, but this is some broth that I recently made. We have some heavy cream. We've got a quart of tomatoes sauce, 2 cups or a pint of broth. For the cream, we were going to use about a half a cup. I think we had a little bit more than that left, so we just went ahead and used all of that today. That's full fat cream or heavy cream. We have half a tablespoon of coconut flour. Some recipes will call for sugar and flour. I have a wheat allergy, so I'm not going to put flour in, and the coconut flour will add a little bit of sweetness, so we're going to do that instead. I've also got 1 small to medium-sized onion grated. We decided to go ahead and grate that ahead of time instead of blending up the soup, since we're using sauce anyhow, rather than ladling our soup into the blender and liquefying it. Having the smaller bits won't bother us, and we won't need to blend the soup. We've got 3 cloves of garlic that have been crushed. We have 3 tablespoons of butter, and we have 2 teaspoons of thyme, dry thyme, and 1 bay leaf. And then what we don't have here is salt and pepper, which we put in almost everything that we cook. So let's take these very simple ingredients and make a wonderful homemade cream of tomato soup. Okay, I've melted my butter in this Dutch oven. This is an enameled cast iron Dutch oven. We use cast iron every single day, I think. And this one in particular with the enamel coating on it we love. It's wonderful for a lot of casseroles and soups and stews and all sorts of things. So we've got the butter melted, and we've got the onions in there. Because tomatoes are a little bit acidic, some people will recommend a non-reactive pan. This is why I'm using the enamel. You probably don't have to worry too much about it in stainless steel with tomatoes. They're not quite that acidic, but you know, if you're sensitive or you think that it might impart flavor to your tomato soup, then by all means use an enamel pan or something similar. So we're just going to cook this up a little bit till the onions are starting to get a little bit translucent and cooked. Of course, they're tiny. It's a little bit harder to see that for you, I'm sure. And I'm using a wooden spoon. Enamel will get scratched up. It'll get marked up, I should say. Metal utensils will leave little black streaks across it, so I try to use wood whenever, or bamboo, whichever, when I'm using my enamel pans. Save the metal for the uncoated cast iron, but just seasoned, or for the stainless steel pans. A little salt in here. We like to season as we go. Helps us keep track of how much we're putting in with a little salt. And it'll help draw some of the moisture out of the onions. They'll soften a little bit faster too. Alright, that's looking good. We'll go ahead and put our garlic in. We don't want to cook garlic for very long. So just a minute before we start adding the rest of our ingredients. And typically here's where you would add flour to make a roux. Coconut flour absorbs a lot more moisture than regular flour does, and so that's why I've used just a small amount. If you're going to use wheat flour, you would use probably a a good bit more. So, and the reason we use the flour is just to thicken it up just a small bit, to thicken up the dish. You don't need to worry about that if you don't mind it being a little more liquidy. It's not a problem. And as well, using the heavy cream instead of milk, that will also help us to thicken up our soup a little bit. So there we go. Okay, now that we've got all this, we are going to start adding in our tomatoes and broth and all of that. All right, so we've got our onions here. We're going to go ahead, our garlic and our coconut flour also in there. Add in our tomatoes. And as that settles a little bit more, I'll be able to get some more out of that. 2 cups of chicken bone broth, or whichever bone broth you have that you'd like to use. We're not going to add our cream until the end because we would like that to, we don't want that to boil. So now we're going to also add in our thyme and our bay leaf. We'll fish that bay leaf out before we serve it up. There we go. And you can see the little tomato or the little onion chunks in there, but that's okay. They're pretty tiny. So we're going to let this cook a little bit, thicken just a small amount. We're going to add a little more salt and pepper, and then we'll add the cream just before we serve. We've been simmering very low here for about 10 or 15 minutes to make sure that all the flavors can meld together and those herbs can get their flavor into the soup. We're going to fish out our little bay leaf here. Put that in here. And we will add our cream. Now I've been salting and peppering as I add ingredients, and altogether I've probably added, I don't know, 1/2 to a teaspoon of pepper and probably 2 or 3 teaspoons of salt. None of my ingredients were salted prior to putting them in the pot, so I'm going to go ahead and turn the heat off because we're plenty hot here to get the cream warm. We don't want to boil the cream. We just want to get it warm. There we go. And we have a delicious cream of tomato soup. Very good. Warm. Be great with a grilled cheese sandwich, or if, like me, you can't have bread, a melted cheese on a pumpkin seed tortilla. Very good. You should try it.
Please visit the blog post linked in the video description below for more information about this video and the supplies used.